Our next speaker, Timothy O'Donnell. Welcome and thank you.
We're going to go together in effort to respect your time and get through this. Good afternoon, dear chairs and esteemed members of the Planning and Development Committee. My name is Jeremy Menard, President of Torrington Firefighters, IAFF Local 1567, the organization that represents all the fine men and women of Torrington Fire Department. We rise today to provide testimony in complete support of SB 334. As the President, it's my duty to serve and represent all members' health, safety, and benefits, which is exactly what brings us here today. In an effort to save that time, I've submitted my testimony written, and I'll let you review that, but I'll let my Vice President, Tim O'Donnell, read his testimony to you.
Good day to the legislators before me of the Planning and Development Committee. My name is Tim O'Donnell, and I'm the Vice President of the Torrington Firefighters Association. I'm a fire lieutenant with 12 years of service to the City of Torrington, and the intent of my testimony is to provide my unwavering support of SB 334. It was my honor to speak in favor of a similar bill on February 14th of last year, because I know a defined benefit retirement plan is what's best for Connecticut's firefighters. Last time I spoke in favor of SB 935 because retirement pensions for firefighters would mean a finish line was attainable after 2 to 3 decades of erratic sleep cycles, exposure to carcinogens, and maimed or dead bodies. I wish I had an hour to explain that this job is not intended for people in their 60s, that firefighters are industrial athletes and need to be in peak physical condition to meet the demands of saving lives on the fire ground. I wish I had a day to stand before you and explain how the latest research sheds light on why firefighters succumb to cancer at such a high rate when compared to the general public. I wish I had a week to explain how the scenes we witness and the stressors of this job are so mentally destructive that 2 clinics for mental health and substance abuse treatment will be opened by the IAFF personally for firefighters to get them the help they need. I wish I had time to explain why all of this is so important for all these reasons and more. And I know many of you may agree with me in principle, but you're asking yourselves, why is this the responsibility of this state's legislature? Years of tax raises at the state level have driven residents and businesses away from old Connecticut mill towns like mine. Grand lists then decrease, causing financial hardship on municipalities, which leads to short-sighted decisions. Vacant buildings and a poverty-stricken population only raise the hazards and threats that firefighters face in the communities, and yet those same firefighters are the first to have municipal budgets balanced on their backs and are continued to be asked to do more with less. You are not the group of senators and representatives that have caused the ripple effect leading to 70-year-old firefighters in many Connecticut municipalities, but you can be the group to pass legislation which will stop it. Doing so will not only benefit the first responders, but also the citizens whose lives depend on having the best ready at a moment's notice. I love my job and intend to continue to serve my city. I exercise, I eat right to try and keep Father's Time effect to a minimum for as long as I can. I've taken out an insurance plan on myself to protect my young family's future in the event I contract cancer. I spend time listening to stories from people suffering from post-traumatic stress, and I learned coping mechanisms to ensure I am mentally fit enough to go to work. Although I am not fortunate enough to be enrolled in a defined benefit pension, I'm still exempt from Social Security, and due to legislation such as government pension offset and windfall elimination, I have no idea what Social Security benefit I'll be entitled to collect one day, if at all.
Excuse me, your 3 minutes are complete. Please summarize.
I will summarize in this. 401-style retirement plans have worked for the average 9-to-5 American that can work long enough until their investments can supplement their Social Security. So I'll leave you with this. Firefighters are not average Americans. We cannot be asked to carry the burdens of this profession for 40 or more years just to stay afloat. So ask yourself why 25-year pensions became the norm, and please support this bill going forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Rep. Davisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Just so you know, I am a disabled volunteer firefighter, was severely injured when I was quite young. Put an end to my firefighting career. So I certainly understand the dangers of firefighting, whether volunteer or paid. But I did want to ask you specifically about the Social Security. So, as a career firefighter, you're not you don't participate in the Social Security program at all?
Correct. I believe it's a law passed years ago in the 50s between municipalities and the state, and it was signed that I believe police officers, teachers, and firefighters did not need to be enrolled in Social Security. When we moved to this defined contribution plan, municipalities chose to continue with that wording and basically stating that they believe a defined contribution is a pension plan.
Okay, so that was created with an agreement between the state of Connecticut and the municipalities?
Yes, if I remember correctly, it's a 251.
It's a 218.
218 agreement, yes.
I'm sorry, what was the number you just?
218 agreement. I had to do some serious research and FOI to dig it out of the archives and for the agreement between the city of Torrington and the state.
Okay, so
We can't.
not participating means that you don't get any Social Security payout when you retire.
Correct, because we're not enrolled and we don't pay into it.
Okay, so you don't have the Social Security removed from your check the same as everybody else.
Correct.
Okay. So you could take that money and put it into an annuity of some sort and make and have a payout 10 times what Social Security would pay, couldn't you?
I mean, essentially, yeah, the whatever that percentage is, we do have opportunity to invest that.
Okay, because Social Security is, yeah, you make like 1%. Any standard annuity could make a lot more than that. Are firefighters not making any plans for their own retirement?
No, I believe every one of us are trying to make plans for our retirement, but as stated earlier, it's a job that takes a toll on us both physically, mentally, a job that we're unable to perform into our later lives, and having to force those investments at a much quicker rate, which doesn't always necessarily happen.
Understood. Okay.
If I could touch on that same
now
question.
Is it? Yeah, go ahead.
So I've met personally with a financial advisor being enrolled in a defined contribution just so I have a better picture of how long it is I would have to work in order to achieve retirement. And essentially, by being enrolled in a plan that is very similar to, like I alluded to in my testimony, the average 9-to-5 American, in order to safely retire into my late 80s or 90s, if I'm fortunate enough to live that long, I would have to work until age 65, just as anyone else would. And that's assuming my investments perform well and I make smart, educated financial decisions, putting aside as much money as I can. The fact remains that I'm in my early 30s now, and I'm starting to see that this job is different than it was in my early 20s. And I can only imagine what my body is going to be telling me when I'm in my late 50s and 60s. And then I certainly hope I'm able to continue to work and continue to put those investments away and make those sound financial decisions. But at some point, there's only so much I can physically do in order to ward off aging.
Understood. Have you, now you're from Torrington, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Torrington doesn't have a pension plan?
So we're a split system right now. We lost our defined benefit pension in 2009 with threat of going to arbitration and losing it there. The union reluctantly forgave that, not forecasting what was going to be brought upon us and where we're at now. I can say now, as I sit here before you in 2024, we've lost almost 17 members to other municipalities that all have a defined benefit plan, and that's solely the reason that they're leaving. If I could bring those members here before you today and have them testify, they would all sit here in front of you and state that they wish they didn't have to leave Torrington. They love their job in Torrington. They loved serving the people of the city of Torrington. But in an effort to look out for the best of their families and knowing that they couldn't do this job forever, that was the hard choice that they were forced to make.
So did I understand it correctly that as part of collective bargaining, the union agreed to give up the defined benefit plan?
Yeah, in 2009, we were about to go to arbitration and reluctantly gave it up in 2009, not to have opportunity to possibly lose more than what was given up just in defined benefit. If you remember, back in that time, 2008, 2009 crisis, it was not a fun time, and it wasn't a very good time to look forward into going into an arbitration process.
Okay. Has the union done anything since then to try to get it back?
We have, and actually that's why we sit here before you today, because through negotiation efforts, we've attempted several times to negotiate with the municipality and have failed. We've done actuaries, we provided costs to the municipality. Here we are years later. At one point, we had a proposal to move all of our members into CMERS, which our existing members that were in the pension plan provided by the city would have actually lost a percentage in their denominator. But all of our members were willing to do that for the greater good. That being said, a lot of those members that were in defined contribution at the time were very new. So the buy-in from that actuary for the municipality was very, very low. And the city was still against it. So we've tried at several attempts proposing different things, and we've come to a standstill. Obviously, the city looks at the overall and not, as the police officer stated earlier, the continued cost of us losing people and the forced overtimes and everything else that comes along with the detriment of not having a defined benefit plan.
But aren't all those things factored into the negotiations with the union?
As far as us presenting that to the municipality?
Yeah. During your negotiations for your next contract, aren't all those things factored in?
They absolutely are. And again, I'll state that's why we sit here before you today, because it plays upon deaf ears, sir.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like you're not making much progress with your collective bargaining agreement. Don't take this wrong, but now you're coming here and asking us to force the town to do what you can't negotiate.
And I would say it's not that we can't negotiate. I would tend to believe that most of the people that are going to stand before you today and testify on behalf of this bill have all made the similar efforts with their municipalities, and again, plays on deaf ears, and the problem continues to persist. So it's not that we're bringing our lack of ability to negotiate with the municipality. It's the fact of the problems that are being created by the municipalities not wanting to hear what we present through negotiation.
Ultimately,
Okay.
the binding arbitration process in the state of Connecticut, although it is a good system, it is not a totally fair system for us as labor, given that Should any negotiation go to the binding arbitration process and an award come out, the municipalities still would have the opportunity to appeal that, whereas the labor union at that point has no further action it can take. So the odds are stacked against labor, even in as fair of a process as we do have to negotiate contracts.
Okay. Now, most of the towns that I represent have volunteer fire departments. How would this affect them?
I don't know specifically how it would affect them. I stand before you as a professional career firefighter, and as I stated, earlier, it's my job as the president to serve and represent all my members' health, safety, and benefits, and that's why I'm here today. So I can't speak to the volunteer side of things. I can only speak to my side as a professional career firefighter, sir.
Got it. Well, I appreciate that. And I do represent some municipalities that have career firefighters, and some, actually at least one that's split, has some professionals and some volunteers. My concern, though, is that because some of the volunteer departments are having trouble recruiting volunteers, they would love to be able to hire professionals, but if they are forced then to provide defined benefit pensions for anyone they hire, that might might prevent them, or at least deter them from hiring professionals. Do you see that as a possible problem, or is it something that you can't really comment on?
I don't think I can speak to it on that side of it for the volunteers. Again, I can only speak to from my side as a professional career firefighter, and I could say that municipalities that don't have defined benefit plans, just as the officer stated earlier, are having a severe problem with recruitment and retention. I know over my 18 years, I've seen the decline in that, and as soon as we hire a group, some of them leave. We just hired a group of 5, and I could almost guarantee you that that whole 5 does not make the year end. That a percentage of them will probably move on to another municipality.
To piggyback that a little bit, one town you could cite in as an example is the town of Cromwell, which started out as a largely volunteer fire department, and for various reasons had to begin to hire career staffing. The career staff of the Cromwell Fire Department are all members of the CMERS plan. So although they are a smaller career or combination department, if you will, their full-time staff are members of a defined benefit system.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Now, any idea why towns that don't have one of these plans, if it's significantly affecting retention and recruitment, why aren't the elected officials doing something to enhance retention and recruitment?
So I think I can only speak for Torrington specifically and the situation that we've gone through, but it took some time. As I stated, we go back to 2009. I'll say that we probably didn't start to see people leave until 2013, 14. And as of late, it's gotten even greater because the fire service has caught on to what police departments have been doing for a long time. Police departments send their officers to the academy and they become certified officers. And then they can move around wherever they like, just like teachers do. And the fire department never did that. And now what's happening is these fire departments that still offer better pay, benefits such as a defined benefit pension plan, they're losing members through attrition, through retirement, and they want to fill those seats fast. And they've wisened up to the fact of, hey, why dole out all of this money through overtime, enforced overtime? We can put people in the seats right away. So they've started lateral transfers. And that's what's created the uptick on the fire service side. These municipalities that still have defined benefit pensions, they put out lists, and it's literally an application. They're taking members from places like Torrington that don't have defined benefit pension, who have gone to the academy. They're already trained. They may have been on the job for some sort of time, and they laterally transfer, and they literally go from our fire truck today to XYZ town. I mean, I could give you a list of all of the towns that my members have gone to, and every single one of them is all been for a pension. None of them have. People don't get into. You get into this business because it's a passion. When we start this business, it's not about the pay, the benefits. We do it because this is something we want to do. We want to serve the communities that we get hired by. It's a calling, if you will. But as Tim stated, you start to do this job. As I stated to you, I've been 18 years on the job, and the old saying is, it's not if you're going to get hurt, it's when. And I could sit here and list you a multitude of injuries that I've faced in my career. Just 2 years ago, I took a 20-foot fall out a window during training. The whole rope system failed. I have several herniated discs in my neck that need surgery. I've been putting it off because I'm so scared that I'm going to get that done, and they're going to tell me that I can't do my job as a firefighter anymore. So I think all of those things together are what, combines, and, it's all of the problems that are created that we're just starting to see because of, the lateral transfers and other municipalities rabbit picking, if you will.
Got it. Okay, well, I very much appreciate your time and your testimony. I certainly understand the dangers and the toll that the job takes on people. As I told you, I'm a perfect example of that. And I thank you for coming in.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Rep. Delnicki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming forward and speaking to the issue. I have to apologize. I had to step out a few minutes ago, and I'm going to have to step out again, so I'm just going to ask a couple of questions here. What is the life expectancy of a firefighter, compared to an average person?
It's definitely reduced. It's along the lines of the police. I don't want to state statistics because I don't have those in front of me, but it is in line with what police officers are.
Basically, that statistic I made a reference to, I think it was 57, somewhere around there.
Correct, somewhere.
And you face the challenge of cancer. I know we did something there to actually fortify that program.
Yes, and thank you very much to all of you for that.
So what does it cost to train a firefighter to the point where they can actually go out, do an entry, etc., and actually fight a fire?
I will attempt to give you a number, but that is a difficult question to answer, and I'll explain why. But the cost of the Connecticut Fire Academy at this time is in the neighborhood of $9,000, and that's about a 4-month program. So while that recruit is getting paid a salary by the municipality that entire time, you could expect them to be getting a salary package of between $30,000 and $40,000 in that time, on top of the cost of tuition, on top of the cost of benefits. And that upon graduation, they would be ready to be part of the crew on the engine. But just by being part of the crew, there are thousands of hours of additional training that come afterwards, which are now the department's responsibilities, such as learning department-specific equipment, department-specific operations, learning how to drive the apparatus, learning the maps of the city, where the streets are, the target hazards, how the water distribution system works, where the hydrant locations are. It's an ongoing process, and all of us are still learning. I've lived in the town I work in for almost my whole life, and there's not a shift that goes by where I don't learn something. So you could say they're ready to go in 4 months. You could say that they're ready to go in 3 years. But no matter what time frame you quantify, if you lose experience, it takes a lifetime to build that up again by simply hiring the next person on the list.
So it's much like the police field FTO.
Correct.
So would it be fair to say that probably the total cost when we're talking training, we're talking pay, we're talking equipment, because obviously you have to have equipment that fits you, and that has to be
Correct.
exact. So it's probably in that neighborhood of well over $100,000.
I would say all of that.
So it's much like the cost of a police officer.
Absolutely.
And if you look at it from a cost-benefit analysis, is it roughly a balance between the cost of training an officer, equipping, et cetera, versus a defined benefit pension, versus if you lose the officer, not officer, but the firefighter to another department?
Yeah, and I believe that's, to the point before, I believe that's the oversight that happens when we try to present this through the negotiation process. They don't, the municipalities are not paying mind to that cost because it's not a physical number in front of them every time. It goes away and they hire somebody else. Beyond that, a big part of our jobs, both police and fire, it's a very family-based service. The people that I work with in the fire department, they're my second family. Some of them closer than some of my own blood family, because we spend so much close time together, whether in the firehouse, out on calls, relying on him next to me to protect my life as well as the public's life. So it's a very unique thing. And that being said, the detriment that it provides on that part of the department is unexplainable. I can't even put words to it. It's like Groundhog Day in the firehouse. Every time we lose somebody, the next one comes in and we're starting back at scratch. And meanwhile, over the last couple of years, I've had members everywhere from a promoted position. Tim and I are both lieutenants in the fire department, and most people, when they come in as a young firefighter, they strive to promote in the business. They want to be future leaders. I've had people everywhere from leaving a promoted position with 11 years on the job to go to another municipality, 10, 9, it's unheard of that happens. And now that this whole system of lateral transfers has happened, now they're coming out of the academy, and some of them haven't even started. They've gotten job offers while they're finishing up the academy, and they head to that other municipality before they even step foot in our department. That's how bad it's gotten.
I think the biggest cost that is impossible to quantify right now is how much it's going to cost the municipalities in another 20 years when we've all aged significantly and are still here because we can't retire yet. It's going to be, I think, a very enormous burden for the municipalities to bear when the average firefighter is in their 50s or even early 60s, that even small injuries are going to cause long-term absences from work, or the potential for cardiac-related events leading to line-of-duty deaths, which is already a major problem in the fire service, but will be more so when the average firefighter is significantly older than they are right now.
And to add to that, I will say it's not impossible. Kudos to the city of New London. They were in a 401 plan for a very long time.
17 years.
And they transitioned to a defined benefit plan for the exact reason that Tim just stated. They started to see aging firefighters. They started to see injuries. They started to see, long-term away from the job and having to fill that in overtime. And the city of New London recognized that, and they transitioned back to a defined benefit plan. The difference is they heard their firefighters, and they recognized the problem.
So basically, they created a very stable situation there by doing that.
Correct.
Okay. I've got to apologize. I have to run to a brief
No apologies
meeting, but I
necessary.
will
Thank
be
you for
back.
your time.
No, thank you for your time and telling us exactly what the challenges are and why we should be looking at this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for testifying today. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
I was a firefighter, but where I was, it was only a volunteer system across the border in Mamaroneck. And I think I was the only French firefighter there, so you could hear the jokes at the firehouse. But I too had colleagues that got hurt, some with cancer, and etc. So I'm just making comments that I understand the risks, but I also understand the need for the pension. Again, we keep hearing from you. We heard from police officers that towns, and how you explain it, you're training someone, and then the next day they're gone because they're going somewhere where there's, it's like a competition. There shouldn't be competition.
Exactly.
It should be leveled all across the state, and I really, I'm very supportive of this bill, and that's it. I mean, it makes only sense to me. I know there's other options, but if I had to debate this with some colleagues, and like we could talk about other jobs. You guys are going straight into a fire, right? You're going in a house on fire. So you're actually taking risks on behalf of the taxpayers and to protect the taxpayers. So I think that brings huge value and in supporting pension all across the state for all firefighters and police officers. Thank you very much for coming to testify today, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other question? My co-chair, Rivka.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. I really struggle because we talk about, in this country we have had unions built the middle class, and yet we have sort of, as you mentioned, handcuffed our unions with the situation with collective bargaining in terms of the municipalities can appeal, but you can't appeal. So I really do struggle with this because I think that is part of the issue at hand, is that if you had better bargaining power in terms of the collective bargaining, and certainly this isn't the labor committee and we don't want to get too far afield, but I do think that that is certainly part of the issue. I also wanted to just bring up, because I know my good colleague brought up the lowered life expectancy. I've seen it 10 years, I've seen it 15 years, I've seen it 20 years listed online. But I also just wanted to say, in addition to whatever the current life expectancy is, I've done a lot of work on PFAS. I'm going to continue to do a lot of work on PFAS. We did bring up cancer a little bit. I think that those numbers are going to change, and that is probably my greatest concern for you, is that you are putting on those suits every day that are covered in PFAS. You were spraying foam that was PFAS. We have our drinking water contaminated in how many communities because of PFAS. But you were on the first line of that, and there was no Silkwood shower to just get that off. And for it not to be, when you were talking about your investments and how you're investing because you have a family and you want to make sure, we can all make investments. We can all invest our money how we choose to, whatever money it is that we make. You can invest it in clean companies or not clean companies. You can invest it wherever you want. But the challenge here is that the towns need to invest in you. And you have invested in us by stepping up and saying that you'll walk into, as my other good colleague said, you'll walk into the fire for us. It's even more dangerous in some regards sometimes than police officers, because maybe not every situation is quote unquote a fire for them, right? But I think that especially in terms of injury, as you've said, like, you can only do so much by eating healthy and taking care of yourself. But there is a responsibility on the part of the towns, because it's us that you're really serving and protecting in terms of your service. So I just wanted to put that all out there, because we are really grateful for you, and I hope that you have heard that today from more of us than not. And just thank you so much for doing what you're doing, and hopefully we can help you to do that job with a little less stress financially.
Appreciate those words.
And just as you guys have done with the cancer and the PTSD bills alike, and now all of this PFAS stuff, we've worked on making changes on our end to go along with all of that stuff, to better conditions for ourselves. I could go back and say when I started on the job 18 years ago, you went to a fire, you came back, and it was almost like a badge of honor. You threw your stuff back on the side of the apparatus, and when the oncoming crew came in, they were like, oh, those guys had a pretty good job last night. But we've gotten better, and just as when I came on the job, if you went to a horrific call, you went back to the firehouse and you didn't talk about it. But we've changed. Culturally, we've changed for all of that stuff. So we've recognized it. You guys have recognized it and helped with those other bills. And this is the next detriment that is our business is facing, both police and fire, and we would appreciate your support.
And I would just ask one last question, because I think you got cut off during your testimony. You said that you wish you had time to talk about the two therapeutic, I don't know if that was for PTSD or mental health.
Yeah, so the IAFF, the International Association of Firefighters, the labor union that represents most professional firefighters in the United States and Canada, realized at the high rates that firefighters were committing suicide, that had substance abuse problems, or of just a litany of mental health problems. And they said, what can we do more that we're not already doing? So what they've done is they've already opened a place that they call the Center for Excellence in Recovery. It's located just outside of Washington, D.C., and it's for firefighters by firefighters to get mental health treatment. It's been working so well that they're in the process of opening a second one on the West Coast, I believe in the San Diego metropolitan area. And I've spoken to a bunch of people who have gone. Some of our personnel from our own department have gone in order to get treatment for various reasons. And so far, we've heard nothing but positive things about that infrastructure and the support system that it offers.
Glad to hear they're doing it. Sorry that it's necessary.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here today. Obviously, you heard from my co-chair. I agree with her 100%. And this is the last thing you want to worry. And we want to continue work on this progress and keep talking. Obviously, this is the first time we are hearing. I don't think so. This bill will pass this committee, because I think that this is also a public safety committee. Maybe will transfer, down the road, I believe. So I'm not sure, but we're going to continue work on, see what we can do and progress for this. Like I said, this is the last thing you want to worry, and we'll continue work on to help you or help us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you all for your time.
Yeah.